The training station floated in the darkness of space like a metal flower. Hundreds of windows glowed with soft light. Inside, creatures from dozens of worlds walked through wide hallways, talked in strange languages, and prepared for the hardest test of their lives. Yun Taeho stood at one of those windows. He was a tall man with short black hair and calm eyes. His hands were rough from years of work in the mountains and forests of Earth. He had been a wilderness guide before the aliens came. Now he was here, far from home, about to prove that humans belonged among the stars. "You are thinking too much," said a voice behind him. He turned to see Kang Soo-min walking toward him. She was shorter than him, with her hair tied back in a simple ponytail. She was a scientist who studied alien life, but she also knew how to survive in dangerous places. They had trained together for 6 months. "I am thinking the right amount," Taeho said with a small smile. Soo-min stood next to him and looked out at the moon below. It was brown and gray, covered with clouds that moved too fast. That was Vorn 7. That was where they would spend the next 14 days. "The briefing starts in 10 minutes, she said. "Are you ready?" "I was born ready," he replied. It was an old joke between them. They walked together to the main hall. It was a huge room with seats arranged in circles. Aliens of all shapes and sizes were already there. Some were tall and thin like insects. Some were short and covered in fur. Some had scales, some had feathers, and some had skin that changed colors. Taeho and Soo-min found seats near the front. Next to them sat a large reptilian alien with green scales and yellow eyes. His name was Dromak, and he came from a planet called Thesser Prime. He looked at the humans with clear disgust. "More humans," Dromak said. His voice was deep and rough. "I thought your kind gave up after the last failure." "We don't give up," Soo-min said calmly. "That is not something humans do." Dromak made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We will see." The room became quiet as the instructor entered. His name was Vethral, and he was from a species called the Kalori. He was tall and thin, with a body like an insect. He had 4 arms and large eyes that saw everything. "Welcome to the Galactic Survival Academy," Vethral said. His voice came through a translator device on his chest. "You are here because your worlds believe you are strong. You are here because you want to prove yourselves. But I will tell you the truth now. Many of you will fail." He pressed a button, and a hologram of Vorn 7 appeared in the center of the room. "This is where you will spend the next 14 days. The air is toxic without filters. The water is acid unless treated. The creatures there are always hungry. The weather changes without warning. It is, by galactic standards, a death world." Taeho listened carefully. He had studied Vorn 7 for months. He knew its dangers. He also knew its secrets. "Each of you will receive a standard survival kit," Vethral continued. "It contains 47 items. These items have been carefully selected by the best scientists in the galaxy. They will keep you alive if you use them correctly." Assistants began moving through the room, handing out large metal cases. When Taeho received his, he opened it and looked inside. There were water purification tablets, air filters, emergency food packs, medical supplies, fire starters, communication devices, and many other things. Everything was well made and expensive. He began removing items from the case. Soo-min watched him. "What are you doing?" "Choosing what I need," he said simply. One by one, he set aside the purification tablets, the filters, the food packs, the medical supplies. He put back the fire starter, the communication device, the emergency beacon. Soon, the case was empty except for one thing. A knife. It was a simple blade, about as long as his forearm. The handle was made of hard polymer, and the blade was made of ship-grade steel. It could cut, it could stab, it could pry. It was the most basic tool humans had ever made. Taeho held it up, and nodded. This should suffice. The room became very quiet. Dromax stared at him. Is this a joke? No, Tejo said. Other aliens began to whisper. Some laughed. Some looked confused. A small avian alien named Pelinix, covered in blue and white feathers, leaned forward with wide eyes. But the air is toxic, Pelinix said. His voice was high and nervous. Without filters, you will die in hours. I will make my own filters, Tejo said. From what? From what the planet gives me. Vethrol walked toward him, his forearms crossed over his chest. Human, I have watched your species attempt this certification 12 times. 12 times they have failed. Do you think one knife will change that? Tejo stood up and met the instructor's eyes. I think the other humans made a mistake. They tried to fight the planet. I will not fight it. I will work with it. Those are pretty words, Vethrol said. But words will not keep you alive on Vorn 7. No, Tejo agreed. The knife will. Su Min closed her own case without removing anything. She trusted Tejo, but she was also a scientist. She believed in having backup plans. Dromax shook his large head. When I find your body, human, I will be sure to bury the knife with you. It is the least I can do. Thank you, Tejo said. But you should focus on your own survival. An alarm rang through the station. It was time to go. The trainees were loaded into small drop pods. Each pod would land in a different location on the planet's surface. They would be alone at first, though they could try to find each other later. Tejo sat in his pod, the knife strapped to his leg. Through the small window, he watched the planet grow larger. The clouds swirled like angry storms. The surface looked dead and dangerous. His pod shook as it entered the atmosphere. Fire surrounded him. The heat was intense. But he sat calmly, his hands steady, his breathing slow. He had been training for this moment his entire life. Not here, at this academy, but back on Earth. Every cold night in the mountains, every hot day in the desert, every swim in rough waters had prepared him for this. The pod slammed into the ground. The door burst open. Hot, toxic air rushed in. The sky was orange and brown, filled with ash and strange smells. Tejo stepped out onto the surface of Vorn 7. He pulled the knife from its sheath and looked around. Behind him. In the sky, a dark wall of clouds was growing. A storm was coming. A big one. The sensors had said it would arrive in 3 days, but Tejo could read weather in ways no machine could. He saw the way the clouds moved, felt the pressure in the air. The storm would be here in less than 1 day. He smiled. Good, he said to himself. Let us see what this world can do. Then he walked into the wilderness, his knife in hand, ready to survive. The second day on Vorn 7 began with rain. But this was not normal rain. It was acid, falling from orange clouds in thick drops that burned everything they touched. The alien trainees hid in their emergency shelters, watching their equipment slowly fail. Dromax sat inside his shelter, his scales turning pale with fear. The filtration unit on his back was making a bad sound. It coughed and clicked, struggling to clean the toxic air. The acid rain had gotten inside the machinery during the night. Now it was dying. No, 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 he whispered, hitting the unit with his large fist. Work. You must work. But machines do not listen to wishes. The filtration unit gave one last cough and stopped completely. Dromax's eyes went wide. Without clean air, he would be dead within 2 hours. Maybe less. He tried to fix the machine, but his claws were too big for the small parts inside. He did not have the right tools. He did not have the knowledge. He was going to die on the second day. Then he heard footsteps. A shape moved through the acid rain. It walked calmly, as if the burning drops meant nothing. As it came closer, Dromax saw that it was the human. Tejo. He wore no shelter suit, no protective gear. His clothes were simple, and on his head was something strange. It looked like a cap made of thick fungus. The rain hit the fungus and slid off harmlessly. Somehow, the human had found protection on this dead world. Taiho stopped in front of Dromak's shelter. "Your filter is broken," he said. It was not a question. "How did you know?" Dromak asked. "I could hear it dying from 300 meters away." Taiho looked at the machine. "You cannot fix it." "I know that," Dromak growled. "Do you have extra equipment? Something I can use?" Taiho shook his head. "I brought only a knife." "Then why are you here? To watch me die?" "No." Taiho pulled something from his bag. It was a thick piece of fungus, shaped into a mask. "To give you this." Dromak stared at it. "What is that?" "A breathing filter. I made it from the purple fungus that grows near the acid streams. Inside this fungus are tiny creatures that eat the poison in the air. They clean it before it reaches your lungs." "That is impossible. Put it on and find out." Dromak had no choice. He pressed the fungus mask against his face and took a breath. The air was strange, but it was clean. His lungs did not burn. His throat did not close. He looked at Taiho with new eyes. "How did you know about this fungus?" "I did not know," Taiho admitted. "I guessed. On Earth, there are plants that clean dirty water. There are mushrooms that eat poison. I thought this planet might have something similar. I was right. You guessed? You risked your life on a guess?" Taiho smiled. "Humans do that often. We call it intuition." From the orbital station above the planet, Commander UG-1 watched everything through satellite cameras. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had survived 12 combat missions and 3 planetary disasters. Nothing surprised her anymore, but watching Taiho walk through the acid rain made her smile. "He is doing well," said a voice beside her. It was Vethril, the instructor. He had come up to watch the human personally. "He is doing what humans do," the one replied. "And what is that?" "Adapting, surviving, finding ways when there seem to be none." Vethril's large eyes narrowed. "I have studied many species. All of them adapt. All of them survive. Humans are not special. And why are you up here watching?" Vethril did not answer. Down on the planet's surface, Taiho was moving toward a distress signal. His communication device was gone, but his ears were not. He could hear the panic calls of another trainee. Carried on the wind, he found Palinix trapped on a rock surrounded by creatures. They looked like dogs, but they had no eyes and too many teeth. Their skin was gray and covered with small holes that breathed like mouths. Pack hunters. Dangerous. The small avian alien was shaking with fear. His defensive shield had run out of power. His emergency beacon was broken. He had nothing left except his own small body. "Human!" Palinix cried when he saw Taiho. "Help me, please." Taiho counted the creatures. 8 of them. Too many to fight directly. But he did not need to fight them. He needed to make them leave. He pulled his knife and began cutting branches from a nearby plant. The branches were hard and dry. He cut them quickly, his hands moving with practiced skill. Then he pulled out 2 rocks from his pocket and struck them together. Sparks flew. The dry branches caught fire. The pack hunters screamed. They had never seen fire before. On this planet of acid and poison, nothing burned naturally. To them, the flames were magic, terrible, and unknown. Taiho threw the burning branches at the creatures. They ran, howling into the mist. Palinix almost fell off his rock. "How did you do that?" "Fire is impossible here." "Fire is never impossible," Taiho said. "You just need to know how to start it." He helped Palinix down from the rock. The avian's legs were weak, but he could walk. Together, They moved toward higher ground. "I do not understand," Palahniuk said as they walked. "Your species has no natural weapons. No claws, no armor, no poison. You cannot see in the dark. You cannot fly. You are slow and soft. How are you surviving better than all of us?" Tejo thought about the question. On my planet, we were not the strongest or the fastest. But we learned to think. We learned to make tools. We learned to never give up. Never give up? When an animal on Earth is hurt, it often stops fighting. It accepts death. But humans do not do this. We fight until the end. We look for any chance, no matter how small. Sometimes we win just because we refuse to lose. Palahniuk was quiet for a long time. "That sounds exhausting," Tejo laughed. "It is, but it keeps us alive." They found Sumin at midday. She had built a small camp in a cave, using her full kit to create a protected space. When she saw Tejo, she ran to him and held his hands. "You are alive," she said with relief. "Of course I am alive. Did you doubt me?" "Never." She looked at Palahniuk and Dromak, who was following at a distance. "You are collecting aliens like lost pets. They needed help." Sumin smiled. "That is very human of you." That night, they all sat together in the cave. The acid rain had stopped, but the clouds were growing darker. The storm was still coming. It would be worse than anyone expected. Dromak looked at the fire Tejo had built. He had never seen anything like it. "On my world, we have technology for everything. Heat, light, protection. We do not need to make things with our hands. Technology fails," Tejo said. "Hands do not. Your hands will fail when the storm comes." "Maybe, but I will use them until they do." Outside the cave, the wind began to scream. The storm was less than a day away now. And up on the orbital station, all communication with the planet suddenly went silent. The trainees were truly alone. The storm hit Vorn 7 like an angry god. Wind tore across the surface at speeds no living thing could stand against. Acid rain fell so thick it looked like waterfalls from the sky. Lightning struck the ground every few seconds. Turning rocks into glass dot, the group had no choice but to go underground. They found a cave entrance just as the worst of the storm arrived. Tejo went first, his knife in one hand and a burning torch in the other. Behind him came Sumin, then Palahniuk, then Dromak. The reptilian alien had to bend almost in half to fit through the opening. Inside, the cave was completely dark. The alien stopped, unable to see anything. "I cannot move," Palahniuk said, his voice high with fear. "I need light. My species cannot function in darkness." "Neither can mine," Dromak admitted. His eyes, so sharp in daylight, were useless here. Tejo kept walking. "Follow my voice. Stay close to the wall. How can you see?" Palahniuk asked. "I cannot see, but I can hear. I can feel. Humans learned to move in darkness long ago, when we lived in caves on Earth." He used the knife to tap the walls as he walked, listening to the echoes. Each tap told him something about the space ahead. He felt the air with his skin, noticing small changes in temperature and movement. It was an old skill, almost forgotten by modern humans. But Tejo had practiced it in the deep caves of his homeland. They moved deeper into the planet, away from the storm. The sounds of thunder faded to a distant rumble. But the caves had their own dangers. Strange sounds echoed in the darkness. Creatures lived here, things that had never seen light. After an hour of walking, they found a large chamber with a pool of water. The water glowed a soft blue, lit by tiny creatures swimming inside it. "We can rest here," Tejo said. "The water gives us light, and there is air coming from somewhere ahead." They sat around the glowing pool. Palahniuk dipped his beak into the water and pulled back quickly. "It burns," he said. "Do not drink it," Tejo warned. "But we can use the glowing creatures. They are safe to touch." He scooped some of the tiny creatures into his hands. They glowed brighter when disturbed, like living lamps. He placed them on rocks around the chamber, creating a soft light that everyone could see by Dotsu Dashman watched him work. "You are like a survival machine." "I am human," Tejo said simply. "This is what we do." A sound came from one of the tunnels. Something was moving in the darkness. Something big. Dromak stood quickly, his claws extended. "We are not alone." The creature that came into the light was not dangerous. It was an alien, old and weak, with a body made of something like living crystal. It walked slowly, each step making a soft chiming sound. One of its arms was broken and had left a trail of small crystals behind it. "Dexler," Suman said with surprise. "You are alive." The crystalline alien looked at them with eyes that glowed like stars. "Barely," it said. Its voice was like music, each word a different note. "I fell during the storm. My body is damaged. Where are the others from your drop zone?" Dromak asked. "Dead. The storm killed them all. I am the only one left from my group." Tejo helped Dexler sit by the pool. "Can you heal yourself?" "My species can regrow damaged crystal, but it takes time. Weeks, maybe months. Time I do not have." They shared their water and food with the old alien. It did not need to eat or drink the way organic beings did, but it could absorb energy from their supplies. Slowly its glow became a little brighter. "I have a question," Pelanik said, looking at Tejo. "Why is this test so hard for everyone except humans?" Dexler made a sound like laughing bells. "Because this test was not designed for humans." Everyone looked at the crystalline alien. "I have lived a long time," Dexler continued. "I remember when this test was created. It was 400 years ago, before humans joined the galactic community. The 47 items in the survival kit were chosen based on the needs of known species. Species that evolved on safe, stable worlds. Safe worlds? Sumin asked. Worlds with mild weather. Worlds with few predators. Worlds where life was easy. Dexler's eyes moved to Tejo. Earth is not such a world. No, Tejo agreed. It is not. Your planet has everything this place has. Extreme temperatures, deadly creatures, poisonous plants, natural disasters. Your species evolved to survive conditions that would kill most beings in the galaxy. Dromak looked offended. My species is not weak. Your species is strong, Dexler said gently. But your world was kind to you. You never needed to develop the skills these humans have. You never needed to make fire, or read weather, or turn enemies into tools. Enemies into tools? Pelanik asked. Tejo held up his knife. On Earth, our ancestors made weapons from the bones of the animals they killed. They made clothes from skins. They made shelters from bodies. Nothing was wasted. Everything was used. That is horrible, Pelanik whispered. That is survival, Tejo replied. We did not choose to be born on a death world, but we learned to live there. We learned to make that world part of us. The ground shook. Small rocks fell from the ceiling. The storm above was causing problems below. Earthquakes, Sumin said, her face worried. The storm must be destabilizing the geology. Another shake, stronger this time. A crack appeared in the wall of the chamber. We need to move, Tejo said. These caves are collapsing. They gathered their things quickly. Dexler could not walk fast, so Dromak carried the crystalline alien on his back. The old creature was surprisingly light. Tejo led them through the tunnels, following the flow of air. Where there was air, there was an exit, but the shaking was getting worse. Walls crumbled. Floors broke apart. The path behind them disappeared into darkness and dust. Then they reached the end of the tunnel. It was not an exit. It was a pool of water stretching into blackness. The only way forward was through. What is in the water? Pelinix asked. Taiho watched the surface. It was moving, but not from the earthquakes. There were things swimming below. Predators, he said. Many of them. Then we cannot go that way. Taiho pulled out his knife. Yes, we can. You are insane. I am human. He looked at the others. Wait here. I will clear the path. Before anyone could stop him, he dove into the dark water. Su-Min ran to the edge. Ta-ha! But he was already gone, swallowed by the blackness. They could hear splashing and sounds that might have been fighting. The water turned dark with something that looked like blood. Minutes passed. The cave shook again. Rocks fell from above. Then Taiho's head broke the surface on the far side. He was bleeding from several wounds, but he was alive. He was smiling. The path is clear, he said. Come now, before more arrive. One by one, they entered the water and swam across. The bodies of dead creatures floated around them, killed by a single human with a single knife. On the other side, Dromak looked at Taiho with something new in his eyes. It was not respect exactly. It was fear mixed with wonder. What are you? The reptilian asked quietly. Taiho wiped blood from his face. I already told you. I am human. This is what we do. They kept moving through the caves, looking for a way out. Behind them, the tunnels collapsed completely, cutting off any retreat. There was only forward now. Only survival. They came out of the caves into a world of fire. The storm had passed, but it had left destruction behind. The ground was cracked and smoking. Rivers of hot liquid rock flowed between broken mountains. The air was thick with ash and the smell of burning. The volcanic system has awakened, Su-Min said, looking at the destruction. The earthquakes must have opened old vents. Taiho studied the land ahead. It was dangerous, but it was also survivable. He could see patterns in the lava flows, paths through the chaos. Humans had lived near volcanoes on Earth for thousands of years. They knew the signs. We can cross, he said, but we must be careful. Cross? Dromak looked at the rivers of fire. That is suicide? Staying here is suicide. The caves are gone. The only rescue point is on the other side of this region. Pelinix sat on a rock, his feathers dirty and burned at the edges. I cannot do this. I am too weak. Leave me here. Su-Min knelt beside the small avian. We do not leave anyone behind. That is foolish. In my culture, the weak accept their death so the strong can survive. In our culture, the strong carry the weak. She looked at Taiho. Help me with him. Taiho nodded. He had expected this. Humans did not abandon their allies. It was one of their greatest strengths and their greatest weaknesses. He began organizing the group. Each person had abilities that could help, even now, even when technology had failed. Dromak was strong and heat-resistant. His scales could handle temperatures that would kill the others. Dexler's crystalline body could sense vibrations in the ground, warning them of unstable areas. Pelinix could see heat patterns that others could not, showing them where the ground was about to break, and the humans could do what humans always did. They could think. They could plan. They could lead. Listen carefully, Taiho said. We move in a line. Dromak goes first. He tests the ground and carries the X-Lure. Pelinix watches for heat changes and warns us. Su-Min and I protect the sides. Protect with what? Dromak asked. Your little knife? With everything. Taiho's eyes were hard. We protect each other or we all die. There is no other way. They began to cross the volcanic field. It was slow and terrible. The heat made breathing difficult. The ground cracked under their feet. Several times, they had to jump over rivers of lava, trusting their bodies to carry them. Su-men walked beside Pelenix, helping the tired avian move forward. As they walked, he asked her a question. Why do humans help others? What do you gain? Su-min thought about it. On Earth, our ancestors were weak alone. A single human was easy to kill. But together, we were strong. We learned that helping others helped ourselves. When I save you today, you might save me tomorrow. But I might not. I might die tomorrow. Yes, you might. But we help anyway. That makes no sense. Su-min smiled. Humans often make no sense. It is one of our best qualities. Far above the planet, hidden in the darkness of space, a large ship watched everything. On its bridge stood Admiral Quan Hyan-su. He was an old man with a stern face and medals on his chest. He had fought in 3 interstellar wars and negotiated peace with 17 species. He was one of the most respected humans in the galaxy. He was also very interested in what was happening below. The instructors are worried, said a voice beside him. It was Vethril, who had been brought to the ship when communications failed. They say this was not supposed to happen. The storm, the volcanic activity. It was supposed to be a difficult test, not a death sentence. Every test becomes a death sentence eventually, the Admiral said. What matters is how beings respond. The humans are responding well. Yes, they are. Vethril's eyes narrowed. Admiral, may I ask you something directly? You may. Why were humans invited to this academy? Your species has only been part of the galactic community for 30 years. You have no status, no political power, no advanced technology. By every measure, you should have been ignored. Admiral Quan was quiet for a moment. Do you know the story of how we met the first aliens? Yes, a Kalori survey ship found your planet. It found more than our planet. It found a species that had already visited every environment on their world. Deserts, mountains, oceans, frozen wastes. We had climbed our highest peaks and dived to our deepest waters. We had survived ice ages and plagues and wars with ourselves. Many species have history. Not like ours. When the Kalori met us, they expected primitive savages. They found beings who had already conquered their own death world. They found beings who looked at the galaxy and said, "We can live there too." Vethril was silent. The Galactic Council did not invite us here to see if we would fail, Admiral Quan continued. They invited us to confirm what they feared. That humans are survivors. That we will not stop. That we will spread across every world, every system, every corner of the galaxy. Not because we are the strongest or smartest, but because we simply refuse to die. Down on the planet, Teho was proving the Admiral right. He led the group through a narrow pass between 2 walls of cooling lava. On the other side was a flat plain, covered in ash but walkable. In the distance, they could see a tall structure. It was the rescue beacon. We are almost there, Su-min said. But between them and the beacon was one more obstacle. A territory marked by bones and strange sculptures made of rock. The home of something very large. What lives here? Pelenix whispered. Dexler answered, his voice weak but certain. Born 7's apex predator. The locals called it the Ground Titan. It has never been killed by any weapon. It has never been defeated by any hunter. Then how do people survive it? Dromak asked. They do not enter its territory. Teho looked at the bones scattered across the ground. Some of them were huge. Others were small. The Titan did not care about size. It killed everything equally. We have to cross, he said. Impossible, Dromak replied. Even you cannot fight that thing. I will not fight it. Teho was already walking forward. I will convince it that I am not worth the effort. How? On Earth, we have a hunting technique. We call it persistence hunting. We follow an animal for hours, sometimes days. We never let it rest. We never let it feel safe. Eventually, the animal dies of exhaustion. That is terrifying. Yes, but it works both ways. Animals learn to recognize hunters. They learn which hunters are too much trouble. If I can make the Titan understand that killing me will cost more than I am worth, it will let us pass. Su Min grabbed his arm. That is a guess. You cannot be sure. I am never sure. Taeho touched her face gently. But I am human. I try anyway. He walked into the Titan's territory alone. The others watched from the edge, hearts beating fast. They could not see the creature yet, but they could feel it. The ground was shaking with its approach. Somewhere in that field of bones, a human with a knife was about to face a god, and somehow they all believed he would survive. The ground titan rose from the ash like a mountain coming to life. It was larger than any creature Taeho had ever seen. Its body was covered in plates of natural armor, thick as walls. 6 legs carried its massive form, each one as wide as a tree. Its head had no eyes, but dozens of small openings that sensed movement and heat. When it breathed, fire came from its mouth. Taeho stood still. His knife was in his hand, but he did not raise it. Fighting this creature was impossible. Anyone could see that. The Titan could crush him with one step, burn him with one breath, but killing was never his plan. The creature moved toward him, shaking the ground with each step. It lowered its head and breathed heat in his direction. It was testing him, trying to understand what he was. Taeho did not run. He did not show fear. He simply stood and looked at the creature. Then he did something strange. He hit himself on the chest, making a sound that echoed across the ash field. Once, twice, 3 times. Each hit was strong, bruising. The Titan stopped. Its head tilted. Taeho hit himself again. He stamped his feet on the ground. He made himself as loud and visible as possible. In nature, prey tries to hide. Prey is quiet and small. This human was being loud and obvious. He was not acting like food. He was acting like a threat. A small threat, yes. But threats come with costs. The Titan could kill him easily. But why? The human had no meat on his bones. He was full of strange smells. And he was clearly insane. Insane prey often had diseases or poisons that made them dangerous to eat. The creature made a decision. It turned away. Taeho began to walk. Not running, never running. Running would make him prey again. He walked slowly, steadily, toward the far side of the territory. The Titan followed him with its senses, but did not attack. Every few minutes, Taeho would stop and make more noise. He would stare toward the creature, showing that he knew it was there. He was not afraid. He was not hiding. He was communicating. I am not worth your time. Let me pass. It took 2 hours to cross the territory. 2 hours of walking through bones and ash, feeling the ground shake with the Titan's movements. 2 hours of pretending that the largest predator on the planet was not a threat. When he reached the other side, his legs were shaking. His heart was beating so fast it hurt. But he was alive. Behind him, the Titan returned to the center of its territory. It had decided the strange creature was not worth eating. Maybe next time. Maybe never. Taeho waved to the others. Come, walk slowly. Make noise. Do not run. One by one, they crossed. Dromak walked with his scales raised, making himself look bigger. Palanik sang a high, loud song that hurt everyone's ears. Vexlor made his crystals chime like bells. Su Min shouted words in every language she knew. The Titan watched them all. It did not attack any of them. When the last person crossed, They ran together toward the rescue beacon. It was a tall metal tower, still standing despite the volcanic damage. The controls were simple. Taeho activated the signal. High above, aboard the Admiral's ship, a light began to blink. "We have survivors," an officer reported. Admiral Kwan smiled. "Send rescue craft." Priority 1. The rescue shuttle arrived within the hour. When its doors opened, Taeho and the others stumbled inside. They were burned, cut, exhausted, and covered in ash. But they were alive. Medical teams rushed to help them. Dromak's sails were cracked in several places. Pelenix had lost half his feathers. Dexler's damaged arm had broken further. Sumin had cuts on her face and hands, but Taeho's injuries were the worst. He had wounds from the water creatures, burns from the lava, bruises from hitting himself. Yet he was still standing, still conscious, still checking on the others before letting doctors touch him. The shuttle flew back to the orbital station. When it docked, Vethral was waiting. The instructor looked at the survivors with his large eyes. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he bowed his head. "You have passed," he said. "All of you, with highest honors." Dromak stepped forward. "We would have died without the humans. They saved us at every step. The honor belongs to them." Vethral looked at Taeho. "You brought only a knife. You said it would suffice. I did not believe you." Taeho reached for his belt. The knife was still there, attached to his leg. He pulled it out. The blade was chipped and stained, but it was not broken. "It did suffice," he said. "Just barely. How?" "Because a knife is not just a tool. It is an extension of human will. With it, I could cut, carve, dig, hunt, and heal. But more than that, having only one tool forced me to think, to be creative, to find solutions where none seemed to exist." Dexler spoke, their voice like soft music. "The test was designed for species that depend on technology. But humans do not depend on anything. They adapt to everything." Vethral nodded slowly. "I understand now. Earth is a death world. Humans are death worlders. They survive not because of what they have, but because of what they are." Admiral Kwan appeared at the dock. He walked to Taeho and put a hand on the young man's shoulder. "You have made your species proud," the Admiral said. "I survived," Taeho replied. "That is all. That is everything." Later, there was a ceremony. All the survivors received medals and certificates. Dromak announced that he wanted to train with human survival instructors. Pelenix asked if he could visit Earth. Dexler offered to teach human children the history of the galaxy. But the moment everyone remembered came at the end. A reporter from the Galactic News Network approached Taeho. She was a blue-skinned alien with too many eyes and a device that recorded everything. "Human Yun Taeho," she said. "You completed the impossible. You survived Vorn 7 with nothing but a knife. If you had to do it again, what would you bring?" Taeho looked at the knife in his hand. It was old now, worn and marked by everything it had done. But it was still sharp, still ready. He thought about the question for a long time. Then he shrugged. "Maybe a second knife. For company." The room erupted in laughter. Even the aliens laughed, though many did not understand why the answer was funny. But Sumin understood. She stood beside Taeho and took his hand. "We are the knife," she whispered to him. "Humans, we are small and simple, but we cut through everything." Taeho squeezed her hand. "We do," he agreed. "We always do." Outside the station, the stars burned in the endless night. Billions of worlds waited to be explored. Some were paradise. Some were death traps. All of them would eventually meet humans, and when they did, they would learn what the survivors of Vorn 7 had learned. Humans do not need much. Give them a knife or a rock or just their bare hands. Give them impossible odds and certain death. It does not matter. They will find a way. They always find a way, because that is what humans do.